bringing you a kid-friendly radio show. Every Saturday afternoon on YouTube. Broadcasting live at 1 o'clock. Broadcasting live at 1 o'clock.
Hello and welcome to episode 62 of The Brit Show with me, Ethan. Coming up on today's show, my interview with the cameraman of Ali Abdaal's YouTube channel with over 3 million subscribers is Gordon Greenhorn. But before that, sorry the show is late by a few days. I've been quite busy with organising a coffee morning and lots of other stuff. And there's also been a few technical difficulties with getting Gordon's footage. But the show is here now. So now it is time for my interview with Gordon Greenhorn. Welcome on the show, videographer of the Ali Abdaal YouTube channel, which has over 3.19 million subscribers. It's the one and only Gordon Greenhorn. How are you doing today?
Hi. Excuse me. Sorry, I lost my voice for the first time there. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. It's been a busy week. I've got a bit of a cold, so hopefully I'm coming across okay on the mic. But yeah, thanks very much for having me on.
It's a pleasure. So if people watching don't know who you are, tell them what you do.
That's a good question. I probably don't even know what I do to some extent. I work with Ali Abdaal, who is obviously a YouTuber. You've already introduced him in terms of his 3 million plus subscribers. I help all of the video side of things, the photos. So any YouTube videos you typically see, they'll be filmed by me. Some of them are edited by me. I manage a lot of the sort of production aspects of things. So I guess on a day-to-day basis, I film things and take pictures of things and make content for things like social media, YouTube, that kind of thing. So I guess that's what you could call it.
Yeah. So that's a great explanation. So when you get asked by people who don't understand or don't know what YouTube is, and they ask what you do, what do you say to them?
So YouTube is in effect a huge video platform that's largely dominated by individual creators who just make whatever they want, from silly comedy type sketches all the way up to value providing content. You could be YouTubing how to wire a plug socket to being entertained by a Mr. Beast who makes Charlie and the Chocolate Factory videos. So it's very much like it used to be an amateur type of thing where it would just be people just making videos because they thought it was cool and it was kind of like home video stuff, I guess. I mean, YouTube, I believe, started as a dating app. But then now it's progressed into an absolute behemoth, and it has viewership larger than the BBC globally. And yeah, is that a good way to describe it? I think it might be.
Yeah. So how do you describe your job within that to someone that doesn't know YouTube?
So if anybody watches like Netflix or the BBC, I guess what I do is I help make those programs. Maybe not quite to the scale where there's teams of hundreds of people making them, but in effect, I'm a one-man band that helps someone make those types of videos for YouTube.
Yeah. And when you tell them that there's a whole company behind a YouTuber with over 20 employees, are people surprised?
They are. They think it's mad that YouTube actually makes money. I think usually the first question is, what do you mean? YouTube makes money? Like, do people actually make money on YouTube? It's like, yeah. And, when you get into the numbers of aspects of things, they're absolutely blown away at the fact that, you can do 3, 4, or 5 million pounds a year and have a team of 20 people running just a YouTube channel. But now it very much is a business in itself and an emerging economy, in effect. So the creator economy.
Yeah. So So let's go right back to the start. So what were you like at school and as a kid?
What was I like at school? I was quite sporty. I liked PE was probably my favorite subject. I liked history. I didn't have loads of friends, but I had a few friends. I went all the way up to we did hires in Scotland, so up to sixth year in Scotland, and I finished those. So I did the whole term that someone would do at school, and I guess I liked playing sports. I liked playing rugby, football. Um, I liked like the subjects that I just said, I guess, and I guess that was kind of like school. I didn't necessarily like school that much to some extent because I didn't see the practical application of it. I didn't see why am I learning trigonometry? Like what is the point of this? And in effect, I finished school, didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I guess that was that.
Yeah. So how much do you think that influenced your later life?
Uh, I mean, it didn't drive me to want to go to university, for example. The school didn't really make me go, I really want to go into further education because I didn't really exactly know what I wanted to do. And I guess it didn't really influence too much, I think I remember one English teacher, Mrs. Cebulski, turning around to me and saying, "Gordon, when you find the gravitas, you'll do great things." And I asked him what gravitas meant, and he said, "Go and read the dictionary." And I said, "Oh, I can't be bothered." And gravitas means essentially to find the energy. So part of it, I guess I was a bit lazy with school. I didn't really study very hard, but I don't think it influenced too much in terms of what I would do later in life. It was just kind of I guess, a thing and a process that I had to do, and I had to go to, and that's what you did. It was kind of a default. You went to school.
Yeah. So yeah, so as a kid, like what did you want to do? What was your like dream job?
I wanted to be an accountant. Weirdly, I liked numbers. I liked money, and I find kind of I quite enjoyed that. But then I realized like how boring accounts is because you kind of you just and I feel terribly sorry for any accountants out there. They probably love their jobs, but you're punching into spreadsheets. You're sat at a desk, not doing much. It's not very active. It's not very kind of it's not a very doing job. It's So I guess I then realized I was like, nah, I don't fancy doing accounts. That wasn't necessarily the thing that I fancied doing, and I guess I kind of sidelined that for a bit or forever.
Yeah. So after school, what did you do? Did you go to uni or did you go on to a job straight away?
So I finished my sixth year, which I don't know what year that is in England. It's basically the last year you would be in secondary school. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do myself. Like, I had friends that went off to university to study various things. I mean, things that I didn't think were very, what was the point, like politics and history and that kind of thing. And, they've inevitably gone into doing marketing or becoming a yoga instructor. Um, so I left school not really knowing what I wanted to do. And then I remember bumping into like an old school friend maybe a few months later. And it was actually on a Scottish football coaching course where you could teach teens, juniors and teens football basically through the Scottish Football Association. And I went up to my level 3 on that, and I met with one of my old school friends, and we got talking. And he said he was going to go traveling. Now, traveling, bearing in mind I'm 35, so this was some 17, 18 years ago. Traveling at the time, like gap years at the time, weren't really a thing. It was just kind of, it wasn't something that you certainly do now or talk about now. But there was a company, he was going to basically South Africa to coach football to underprivileged children in shanty towns and things. And I thought that would be really cool. So I researched it, looked into it, and basically like signed up. And I worked most of the summer as a waiter and as a barman because I turned 18 at that time. Saved up loads of money and basically just went off to South Africa for 3.5 months. When I was 18. So it's pretty much when after I left school. And yeah, coached football in Port Elizabeth for 3 months and then travelled along the Garden route to Cape Town, and then came back and just started working again, I guess.
Yeah. So like, did you really enjoy being out there in South Africa? It's totally different, I'm guessing, to Scotland.
Yeah, my upbringing was in essentially a very small town in Aberdeenshire. It was a place called Inverurie, and it was very much a farming community. And we were even outside of that. I lived on a 63-acre farm in sort of the middle of absolute nowhere. And then suddenly, I've gone from that to I traveled a little bit when I was a kid, but not very much at all. Like, we didn't have much money. So we did America, I think, once to do Disneyland. But traveling to South Africa really opened my eyes as a young man, especially as someone who lived in a community with very little diversity. Everyone was just like me. They were either mums or dads worked in oil because it was in Aberdeen, on oil rigs or whatever else, or they owned a farm. That was it. And then suddenly I'm going to South Africa where, poverty there is really, it's awful. And the disparity between rich and poor is terrible. And the various social structures that we have in this, in the UK don't exist there. So people really suffer when things go wrong. So I think it was a huge eye-opener for me, being such a young man, having never really experienced that. And it definitely made me realize that the fact that your small little village or your small town it's good, and it's nice to have close relationships with that, but there's such a broad and wide world out there that you should ultimately go and experience to help you realize, well, whether you're grateful for the circumstance that you have, or certainly if you are grateful for it.
Yeah. So then you came back to the UK, and did you go into hospitality and like managing restaurants and things? So why did you do that?
Well, I didn't know what to do. It was a classic default, I guess. Sometimes if you don't know what to do, you should just do something. And I came back, I got offered a job back to where I was working previously in a hotel, and that's what I just did. And I just kept working a little bit, and I sort of progressed and made a bit more money, and I was enjoying it. It was fun. Like, the hospitality industry at that age, 18, 19, 20, it's fantastic fun. You work horribly long hours, but the camaraderie, the work itself is great fun. But that's not necessarily a long-term career. It's not something that I probably would have recommended someone do forever. But I just came back and I started doing something. That was the main thing, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do just yet. And it just made sense to earn some money, do a job, do a thing, and then, I don't know, see what happens, I guess.
Yeah. So then you also got into bodybuilding as well in your early 20s, and competitions as well. So did you think that could be like a job, or were you just doing it as a hobby at that point?
Yeah, interesting. It's funny. I forget how some of the things that I've done over the years. And not that I should forget that, but yeah, bodybuilding. Like, when I was 15, I started going to the gym, and I do remember through my teenage years watching World's Strongest Man at Christmas on TV with my mum and dad and things, and I was like in awe of how strong these people were. And I was always, like I said before, I was always into fitness. I was always into exercise and sport and that kind of thing. So there was part of that. And I do remember leaving school and working and working in hospitality, and recognizing the fact that you need something else. You need a hobby. You need something that's not work. Like, work can't just consume all of your life. And I couldn't play football like I did previously, because I played that for many years. I couldn't play rugby. And I couldn't do that because, A, the time constraints of like a Saturday and Sunday, that's when hospitality is the busiest. But also at the age of 18, I had rent to pay. I had responsibilities. I left home very young. So I couldn't go and get injured on the football pitch or the rugby pitch. So I just started going to the gym more, because A, I could dictate the time that I went to, and equally I was less likely to, like, I don't know, break a leg or hurt my knee or whatever else, right? And then when I was maybe 19 or 20, I watched the BBC Three, and BBC Three had a program called Baby-Faced Bodybuilders. And Baby-Faced Bodybuilders, it's quite famous on YouTube now. If you type in fish in a rice cake bodybuilder, you'll see this kind of, I think it's a Welsh guy or a northern guy who just talks through his diet, and he's like fish in a rice cake and then fish. That's all he has every like couple of hours. It's quite funny. But weirdly, I was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. What's bodybuilding? And then I looked into the Arnold Schwarzeneggers and the Gold's Gym aspects of things, and what was going on in sort of the YouTube space there. And weirdly, I was like, yeah, I want to like get ready for a bodybuilding show. So in 2008, I researched a bodybuilding show and decided to like put a diet together and then just compete and see what it was like. And that's what I did. I think it was third or fourth in my first competition. And then I realized there was natural bodybuilding, which is what I competed in. So there's the two different types. You've got tested and untested. And I wanted to do the tested bodybuilding because I didn't want to compete against people who took drugs. So then I found another competition a few months later, competed in that and got second. And I guess the rest is history from there, from, you know, a couple of shows to finishing 11. And yeah.
Yeah. So like, did you really enjoy that then?
I enjoyed the fact that it meant I had something other than work. You know, work didn't mean it was just absolutely everything that I did. But then equally, you know, the year later in 2009, I won my competition against quite a big class. And then I also went on to get fourth at the British finals. So that's when it became, I guess, really enjoyable, because I worked really hard for something. I never worked so hard for something, because you have to dedicate 6 months of your life training and eating and waking up and doing everything you need to do to then, you know, getting the success out of it. And that was a very enjoyable part, like the hard work and then the reward at the end of it. But also, like, it gave me a purpose every time I woke up. I woke up, went to the gym, did my cardio, came back, ate food at certain times of the day. It was very structured. And I guess I did enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, you went into personal training. So how do you get into that from managing restaurants to bodybuilding, and then how did you get into personal training?
So it's kind of like a classic, oh, look what I did, I can help you do it too, kind of thing, I guess. But how did I go about it? At the time, I was living in Aberdeen, so I'd moved obviously from Aberdeenshire into the big city of Aberdeen, or what I thought was a big city. It's nothing like London. And basically, I was still training and whatnot, and I'd always thought about this whole personal training thing. Certainly in Aberdeen itself, personal training was very new. It wasn't like a normal thing to potentially do compared to, say, places like London. So it was quite a small industry. And the gym I went to, the personal trainers were just kind of like gym instructors that just show you around the gym. It wasn't kind of the fitness industry that we see today. And I really wanted to do it. But the drawback was I was a restaurant manager at the time, at a restaurant called Cafe 52 in Aberdeen. The salary was good, the tips were good, and I was paying my rent. But there was no satisfaction. Ultimately, it wasn't something that I was really enjoying. And I decided that I wanted to do something that I always wanted to do, was personal training. And I remember the gym manager of the place that I trained at, called Steve Bradley, he recognized the bodybuilding stuff that I'd done. And he was like really interested in it. So they wanted to put me in their like newsletter thing for it. He then wanted to have a little conversation about how he could improve his diet and whatnot. And then it slowly transpired down the road. Basically, he was like, look, I want to offer you a job. We'll pay for your personal training certifications. You come and work for me. And that's when it started. And I remember sort of going from, mid-20s, 24,000 a year, give or take salary, paying my rent, to the minimum wage there, which was £11,500 a year. And you basically earn on a commission basis. So you get more clients, then you essentially earn more money. And yeah, I remember the first few months just being quite tough, because I kind of went from being able to pay my rent to earning £900 a month after tax and having rent of like £550 a month. And so basically it was like a transition from obviously competing, having success, and then someone recognizing that and wanting me to become a personal trainer.
So like, why did you take that like 50% pay cut, as you said?
Because I wanted to do it. There was a weird ignorance where I was like, screw it, you know, what's the worst that can happen, you know, because my parents are still married, you know, they still had a house. I could still go and live with them potentially if necessary. Like it wasn't awful. Like I'd just hand back the keys of the rental place, you know, whatever. But I just wasn't happy working in hospitality. I also didn't see it as a long-term successful career. So I just did it. There was no real thought process. I guess now, like when you say it, oh, you take a 50% pay cut. Are you mad? Well, yeah, I probably was, but I didn't really think about it. I just did it because I wanted to, and that was that really.
Yeah, so it didn't make you scared at all then?
No, because part of me had, I guess, a level of self confidence. It was like, I know I'm better than the personal trainers that are there already. They seem fine, so I reckon I'll be all right. And then I think if it hadn't started to pick up, it's certainly in the first 6 months, if something started to make decent money to be able to pay my rent and not worry too much, I guess we would have been having a very different conversation. But after maybe 2 or 3 months, I'd picked up a bunch of clients. I started making good money, and that was that. You know, I tried the experiment. The experiment worked, and you know, that was that for 10 years or whatever else.
Yeah, so you saw quite a lot of success, as you said, in personal training. So why do you think you were that successful?
I think there was a recognition. I recognized the fact that to some extent we were in the entertainment industry. And the entertainment industry is anything from you could go to the movies, you could go to the restaurants, you could go to restaurants, you could do whatever you wanted. And people could spend that money on their kids as well. They could take them to nice places and do some nice things. And I treated that with the utmost respect. So I would always turn up on time. I'd always turn up smart. I would always make sure I was reasonably shaved. You know, I would be presentable. I'd be attentive. All of those things, because it kind of came from the hospitality industry to some extent, because I worked in sort of 5-star hotels. And that, to some extent, I think that played a part in the fact that the fitness industry, certainly at that time, and even now, but certainly at that time, it wasn't very professional. It wasn't seen as anything. It was just kind of like an add-on at the gym and whatever else. But I was like, no, I'm gonna make this really good, and that helped. I reckon my passion for fitness, I was constantly spending money on new courses, new things, learning, and yeah, I think that definitely helped for sure.
Yeah. So then after 2 years of personal training, you decided to move to London from Scotland. So why did you decide to do that? Because surely you would have had to start afresh with no clients.
Yeah, that was a big move. And again, one that I never really kind of thought of. It was just like, I'm going to do this thing, and it feels right, so off I go. And again, you know, parents still married, still had a house. Like, I don't come from a terrible upbringing, and the worst that would happen is I spend all my money. That's it. I move back to Scotland. We're all done. But you tried, and yeah. So I moved to London, and it wasn't really a worry because I went to go and work for a place that essentially found you clients. You worked as a contractor, and you obviously had to maintain your clients and train them really well, and you had to be competent enough to do it, but they would essentially advertise. They do all the legwork, get the leads, get the people in, and you would essentially train them. So I guess that was very helpful. You know, that's something that I didn't have to go and like network or do anything from that perspective. I just had to get the job in London. So again, yeah, it was the same kind of attitude. Ignorance is bliss to some extent, and I didn't really think too much about what was happening. I just felt right, and that's what I wanted to do. And working in Aberdeen in a 300,000 person fishing village, if you will, compared to a 9 million metropolis that London is, I just thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? And go for it. Why not?
Yeah. So like, how long did it take you to get that job in London then?
Not that long. I saw an advert. There was basically a personal training studio that was the best in Europe. Apparently, it was like the number place to go. It was like on this kind of like the scene that I was on. It was recognized as the best place to work. And I think they had like an open application, so I applied, and then within 6 weeks, 7 weeks, I'd moved to London.
Yeah. So like, were you scared? Did you feel out of place in London?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like it was a similar kind of thing where London is so diverse, again, compared to like Aberdeen. Aberdeen is just, everybody's the same. They do the same thing. Everybody knows what they're doing. But London, for example, I remember waiting for the bus. And in Aberdeen, when you wait for the bus, the bus arrives, and you basically anyone ahead of you, you're like, are you getting on the bus? Are you on the bus? Are you next on the bus? Like, it's kind of like a polite thing to do. London, no, people just get on the bus, and that was a massive difference compared to where I came from, this small sort of village, to just, no holds barred, just do whatever you want, kind of, you gotta fend for yourself kind of thing. So that was a big difference, and the travel stuff and the cost was huge compared to where I came from. I was double the amount in rent. There was loads of more people. It was, it was very, very different.
Yeah. So after a few years of doing that, you went freelance in personal training. So was that a hard choice? Because you didn't really have that job security anymore?
I guess job security is kind of an interesting thing to think about, because even if you're employed, you don't really have job security. People can still make you redundant. They can still tell you not to come into work. You just have the ability to go to like a tribunal when compared to being freelance, but you can't really take yourself to a tribunal. So I guess it was again a case of, if I look at this practically, the gym is taking X of percentage from me to facilitate training these clients without really sort of helping me in terms of my education or whatever else. That's all it was. And the clients weren't bought into the business. The clients were bought into the individual who was training them. I had very low attrition rates. Clients stayed with me for a long time. So I was like, why am I like paying this fee in effect to work here? So I just I then moved away, moved to freelance, because the numbers made sense. This time I actually sat down and went, if I do this and I charge this is how much I could make. Whereas previously I hadn't really done that. And it just made sense. So that's what I did. I just calculated out what I potentially needed to earn and to pay bills. I could easily do that with potentially the clients that I would have. And that was that really. And I think the freedom as well to dictate my own future and what I was doing and how I was doing things, that was also pretty.
So you
important.
actually thought about that decision quite hard.
Yeah. I had to. I think because rent in London is just so much higher than anywhere else, that the risks are still there, and I really enjoyed London, but the upside of basically the asymmetrical risk, the upside of leaving and working for myself was better than staying where I was. So why am I staying where I am? I should just go and do my own thing. But I think that comes with a bit of maturity. It comes with time. It comes with experience. I was 24 when I moved to London. I was 20 when I went into the personal training industry. And now I'm becoming sort of more of a young man than I was then. And I think I was more careful, considerate, reflective than I was previously.
Yeah. So when you went freelance, it was also your first jump into the social media scene and content creation. So what did you start posting?
What did I start posting? I basically took the strategy of anything that angered me when I was younger, when I was going to the gym when I was 18, 19, and you were sold these supplements and these things that were like promising you the world in terms of transformations and six packs and all that kind of stuff. And I basically like took all of that information and just put it out on the internet and dispelled it. And that's the direction I took. I just went after essentially the naive young man that I was and tried to talk to him and say, look, you don't need these things. You just need this, this, and this. This is why. And then I took the strategy of posting 3 times a day for probably about 3 years. And this was before Instagram existed. This was just Facebook. So yeah, I built up a bit of a community and a bit of a following.
Like, how much of an audience did you get from that then?
So my audience, to extent of how audiences can be big now, certainly from Ali's audience of 3 million subscribers, I think I got just over 7,500, maybe 7,800, something like that. So it wasn't absolutely huge, but it enabled me to go and do talks at some of the big fitness expos and things in the UK. I built a sort of an online coaching business off the back of it, so it was well monetized. It wasn't huge, but it was big enough to monetize, and it was big enough to sustain, I guess, a career.
Yeah, and as you said, you started doing online personal training. So after that, so did you like that more than doing in person, or was it like easier as such?
The actual truth of it was more from a business decision. If personal training traditionally would form part of, you'd buy blocks of sessions. So clients would buy minimum sessions of say 10 hours, so 10 sessions, or they buy up to 100 sessions, and they could buy blocks and have discount from that. So what you would get is good for cash flow. So you'd get a bunch of cash come in, but that would have to like span over how many weeks it would take them to potentially finish that. So you couldn't just go and spend it. But it was good because it was a big lump sum that if you needed to purchase something or you needed a safety net, whatever else, it was there. But it leaves you vulnerable, because what if the client takes 6 months to finish those sessions? What if they don't renew at the end of those sessions? So online personal training allowed me to have a kind of salary every single month, because these were direct debits, essentially. These were things that came in. It was recurring payment that was set up with a client because it was more of a coaching service than it was necessarily an in-person training traditional session. So for me, it allowed me to be able to balance that. It enabled me to balance cash flow and ultimately some sort of salary to keep me afloat. Did I enjoy it more or less than in person? I think I've always really enjoyed working with people, certainly on a one-to-one basis. Online was equally as satisfying because people would get amazing results, because people who typically work online are more committed than the ones that, funnily enough, are on a one-to-one session basis. And I don't mean uncommitted. I just mean that people that like one-to-one personal training sessions and can afford it prefer to have the bliss of just being able to come to the gym and have someone show them around and do it safely and with an expert routine. Versus online, there's a level of competence that they think they have, and they follow their routine when they need to, and they ask questions. They just want some sort of expert guidance and whatnot. So I can't really say that I enjoyed things one more than the other, but I'd certainly say I'd edge to more of the one-to-one personal training sessions, because I like people. I like working with people. They're diverse. They're interesting. I had some incredible clients that became good friends and came to my wedding. So yeah.
So as you were getting into that content creation more, you decided to start daily vlogging about your fitness journey for 210 days straight. So why did you do that, and how was it? Was it really draining?
Well, yeah, it was. I look back now and think, how the heck did I do that? It was, I'd almost go as far to say it's harder than raising a child in the early days. Some people will be like, "What do you mean?" But it was hard. So yeah, you're right. I started a daily vlog. What was the reasons for it? Well, the fitness industry at the time on Facebook was very much a discussion. Very much a discussion around, this study says this, so you should follow this type of routine. This study says this, and that's wrong, and this is wrong, and you should do this. It was kind of like internet arguments, in effect. And Casey Neistat at the time had started developing the vlog thing, in 2016, where he had a daily vlog. And I was super inspired by the show and tell aspect of what he was doing and how he was doing things. And I thought, you know what? Why can't I bring this type of medium to the bodybuilding, like a natural bodybuilding contest prep, where I show people what I'm doing? So I've talked about how flexible you can be with your diet, how you just need to manage calories, how you need to weight train like this, and you don't need to do loads of cardio. I was basically taking all that stuff that I was saying and then showing people and demonstrating it. And to me, that was a much more powerful way to do things than just words on a piece of paper. You must at times get inspired by watching people do things rather than people saying they'll do something. Talk is cheap. So that's what happened. And I guess to some extent it was for business, because I knew, we'll probably get into this, but I knew that at some point in the future I wanted to go traveling. I'd built this online business. It was pretty sustainable. It was making me a good income. And I remember in the end of 2015, I had this kind of I traveled up to Scotland for Christmas, and I was thinking about this. I was like, I've got this great online business. Why don't I go traveling? But I needed to make sure that it was pretty concrete and it was solid, that I could go and do that. And I spoke to my wife, and she was, or girlfriend at the time, she's not my wife. She was like, yeah, let's go traveling. I'm keen for that. So I just used that whole year to prepare for it. So part of this daily vlog, because it had all of that stuff that I just talked about in terms of showing people rather than just telling them, it also then helped me get more clients because it was a very good marketing tool for online coaching. And that then set me up perfectly for when I went traveling at the sort of end of 2016. So there was two decisions. It was one, showing and telling people rather than this kind of like internet arguments that people were going on, like commenting and like going backwards and forwards on this study says this study says that, to show people that you can do it and to demonstrate that. And then also as a business thing, because I knew it would help me get more clients. It would help solidify my position as an online coach to go traveling. And then your last question was it difficult? It was really it was really hard. It was really hard because when you commit to something every day, it's certainly for me personally, it's kind of like when I've committed to something, I'm in. I'm all in. And that has its ramifications in terms of like relationships, because you have to maintain those, and not everyone wants to have a camera on their face or expects you to stay up to like 1-2 in the morning editing a video and then get up the next morning to film another video. So that was really hard, especially on my girlfriend at the time, my now wife. So, and then I wouldn't sleep very much because I'd get up at 4 a.m. because I'd have clients at say 6 a.m. in London. Yeah. I'd have clients in London at 6 a.m. because they worked in the financial industry, so they have to get up nice and early. So I'd get up at 4 a.m., film all day until, say, I'd get home at maybe 9 p.m. after work, filming all day, doing my online clients, training clients, and then I'd edit my video, upload my video, and then do that the next day. And I did that at least 5 days a week. And then I still vlogged and did things on Saturdays and Sundays. So yeah, there was weird things. Like I got like weird eye twitches because I was so stressed and so tired. Definitely like relationships suffered a little bit. Yeah, like it really
yeah,
it was really hard.
I can imagine.
Really
so like how long were them vlogs then that you were doing?
They kind of ranged. So they ranged from anything from about 5-6 minutes, probably all the way up to maybe 15 minutes. So I just took the inspiration of Casey Neistat. I was like, if you don't know what to do, just copy someone. Like I have absolutely no issues with people taking, not even just taking inspiration, like flat out just taking exactly what they're doing and applying it to their own life or their own thing. So I bought Casey Neistat's like GorillaPod thing. I bought the camera. I bought the same lens. I bought the microphone, and just went off and did it. And I followed his lead, and that's basically what I did. I think that was your question. Hopefully it was.
So what were you posting them vlogs on? Was it YouTube or was it Facebook?
So I posted on YouTube, but they didn't do very well. But on Facebook was the early days of their video platform. So I'd get tens of thousands of views on some of the videos, which was really good because I had a small platform, I had a small following, and they did really, really well. So it wasn't the platform to potentially upload them to because it wasn't like it was a very janky, weird kind of thing that they were doing that was very different to the previous sort of early days of Facebook. And I did upload to YouTube as well, so I'd upload to both. But because they weren't very well optimized, I wasn't really thinking, I was all about doing. They just didn't do as well.
Yeah. So like, did you gain even more following and clients from them vlogs as well?
So I wouldn't say it expanded my following to a huge degree on Facebook, but because I guess there's two different types of like video content to some extent, where you have reach, which is like searchable content. So how do I fix a plug socket, like I kind of spoke about earlier, versus content that's directed at depth. And depth is feelings and, deep interests, and a vlog. A vlog develops depth, not necessarily breadth. So they kind of were successful in that front. And then when you create depth with an audience, there's I can't remember the name of the author, but it's a book called 1,000 True Fans. And you don't need a massive following to ultimately build a successful business. You just need 1,000 people to pay you, in effect, a certain amount of money to have a successful business. And that's essentially what happened. The depth of those vlogs, I attracted much more clients, and it built a very successful online business off the back of that.
Yeah. So then after you did the vlogging, you were still doing personal training. And so when and why did you transition into freelance videography? Because is that right? You did freelance before you worked for Ali.
That's
That's
true.
true. So there's kind of like I guess there's a little gap there where I built the online business up to the point where I could go traveling with my wife. So I worked as a tech nomad in effect, where we just traveled around the globe, 25 odd countries, and I worked on my laptop, and that was very cool. And then I came back and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life because I thought I'd completed it. I'd like built this successful business online and seen the world, and it was incredible. So for about 2 years, I kind of sat in a lull of trying to work out what I wanted to do. And obviously at the time I was still making vlogs, still making videos, still doing everything. I think there's about 500 on my YouTube channel. So I started to develop that skill. And that skill got noticed where people were like, hey, you're really good at this thing. Can you help me make content? So it would be content around their social media, like a YouTube video, or it might be a brand who was, creating something for a powerlifter or whatever else. So I just take on these ad hoc jobs. And then that turned into me working for like an online personal training, an online fitness education company where I did all their course content and all their kind of things. And again, I built up more and more clients where I was working with them on a retainer basis for their, YouTube channels and their Instagrams and all that kind of stuff. And then it just kept getting better and better and better in terms of my skill. And it then came to the point where, in effect, that was making me more money and dominating more of my time than, say, the in-person one-to-one personal training thing. Because I was still doing like some clients one-to-one, I was still managing a roster of online clients and doing this creative thing. And it was kind of like an inflection point where I was like, look, I need to make a decision. I need to choose which thing I want to do more of. And in effect, I was getting more enjoyment from the creative thing. So I quit the one-to-one stuff, kept some online clients, and then just kept working on the creative stuff for more time.
Yeah. So did you like lose interest in personal training, or was it just you enjoyed the videography more?
I make sure of both, to be honest, because the fitness side of things, to me it seems simple, and it's probably a little patronizing, but it is pretty simple. And to some extent, I felt like I garnered enough knowledge and understanding to help an individual get to where they wanted to go in terms of their transformation or whatever they're trying to achieve. So I'd managed to do that, and I didn't really see any more challenge to it. But I saw more of a challenge in the videography stuff. I saw more of an interest and an intrigue on that. So it was kind of like a combination of I'd done the personal training thing for 10 years. I'd enjoyed it, but now there was this new challenge, this new shiny thing that interested me, and that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. When you made that change to videography, did you take a pay cut yet again?
No, not this time. For me again, there's kind of like there's more on the line. So slowly but surely, from my early teens, as you get older, you just take on more responsibility, and that responsibility also comes in a financial one as well. So at the time, I had a house, a mortgage to pay for, and banks are a little bit less relieving than, say, a landlord or your mum and dad. So the transition was pretty easy because I was making more, if not at least a little bit more than I was necessarily doing my personal training stuff. So that just meant it was an easy transition. Like, it was just a case of, the money aspect of things had never been the issue. It was whether or not I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So like, how did you start the freelance with freelance videography with only your vlogs as the experience?
I guess it wasn't just necessarily the vlogs. I think that was the sort of the foundation, the start process. Because if you do something for 210 days straight and you make a video every day, you'll get good pretty quickly. So it was simply a case of that was the start, and then I just built on that. And I didn't get my first sort of creative clients until I was back, probably 2017, give or take, maybe the end of that. That was kind of the time when I started to get some creative clients. And then that just built up over sort of just before the pandemic, and then during the pandemic, I was still like sort of working to some extent, doing editing and things. So that's kind of how it came about, I guess. It wasn't a case of just doing some vlogs and then suddenly picking up some clients. It was kind of slowly but surely someone noticed something they really liked and were like, hey, can I pay you for a project that I'm keen to do?
Yeah, so what were your like first type of clients kind of thing? So what were you filming?
The first clients would be, oh, can you just film some stuff or take some pictures as well of for Instagram? So it would be some tips videos, or it would be some social media content. And then it would kind of turn into something like a YouTube video, or a lot of some fitness professionals or fitness people have like membership websites. So you can follow their journey, you can subscribe to their membership thing. It's like a Patreon type of thing where you can subscribe to that and you can log into their website and watch their content. So that's basically what I was doing. I was helping them create kind of longer format training videos and taking pictures for the social media and then creating some short social media clips for their channels. And that's where it started, essentially.
So still in the fitness space then?
Basically, yes. I mean, I'd get the odd sort of brand thing where it would be like a product sort of photography, or it might be some product videos, or a wedding. Like I get the odd wedding would pop up and they'd want me to film it. So it'd be kind of a plethora of things, but it was kind of easy because I was already in the fitness industry, right? It was kind of easy because they want content. They're constantly on social media. So that's just where I went into.
Yeah, and then so did you start editing these videos that you were making as well?
Yeah, so I was everything. I was everything from not just the camera operator, but also the editor, but also the ideas guy. So I'd help them. I'd help them with their thumbnails. I'd help them with the potential of what they could include in their videos. And I think having expertise within the fitness industry fundamentally helped me, service that and give them more ideas for their YouTube, their videos, and whatever else. So it became like an all-encompassing creative product.
So then, after that, did you always stick to the fitness industry with your videography, or did you expand into other sections?
Yeah, it was just, again, it was kind of a case of, hey, I've seen you do this thing, can you do it for me? It always became that referral-based aspect. So sometimes, like I said, it was, some companies or brands would come out and ask me to do something that's not necessarily related to fitness. It might be like I guess it would have protein in it, or it'd be a protein drink, or it would be, a friend's getting married, or their friends seen my video, so they're like, can you do our wedding? And it would be that type of thing. So it was never a case of, hey, I'm going to just target this particular market and be like, I'm going to work in that. It was just naturally went into the fitness industry because that's where I was known. I'd already built up an audience from there. And then it was a case of referral based because someone saw my work, really liked it, and wanted me to do that for them.
Yeah. So how long were you a freelance videographer until you got the job as Ali's videographer?
Freelance, probably 5 years. So, specifically working within that sort of freelance creative aspect of things. And about 5 years.
So then were you a freelance when lockdown hit?
Yes, yeah, I was. I was. And that was kind of interesting because obviously one-to-one personal training. I was still doing a bit of that at the time. Couldn't do that anymore. Couldn't do that anymore because that's gyms are shut. Online personal training. I still had some online personal training clients, and luckily at the time, if you typed in online personal trainer, my name came up basically at the top of Google. So that helped. So I had a few clients that sort of, I had a few clients that stayed on, and I coached those. But then I also had editing stuff. So I had editing clients who they'd create their own videos, and I would service those. So they'd create vlogs, or they'd create education content, or whatever else. So the creative stuff still kept me going as well.
So you still managed to actually make money and have a job?
Yeah, because the part of it was also a case of, sure, I had built up a reputation so people would find me, for example, the SEO thing. But at the same time, I'd kind of hustled a little bit where the companies and things that I was working for, I was helping them come up with ideas that would ultimately service me because I'd do the work for them, but they'd also have a product that they'd be able to work on even during the pandemic. So it was kind of like a reciprocal relationship idea of things. And yeah, it meant I could, keep the lights on, feed myself, and keep going, I guess.
Yeah. So was there a little bit of like a scramble when lockdown hit to keep think of things that you could do still in lockdown?
Not really. I don't think I panicked. I think I did go into sort of a sense of, oh God, like what the hell are we going to do for the next, few months? Because I didn't see this being something that was going to be short and sweet and out the way. No way. So I don't think I panicked. I often don't panic about things that I can't control. I can't control the government telling us that we can't go outside. I can't control the government telling me not to go to work. So I kind of took it a bit slowly. And I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to chill out. I'll do the work that I can do. And then that was probably the first week. And then the second week, I kind of pushed a bit harder. I was like, right, okay, we need to do these things. Because it's kind of looming, right? It was kind of this pandemic was kind of coming along and something was going to happen. So I guess I already knew. I'd filmed a few things, long format stuff that I knew something was going to happen. So I thought that would at least tide me over. And then there was two things that I did during the pandemic. One was I decided to create like a fancy Instagram story every single day. So there's a guy called Jesse Driftwood, and Jesse Driftwood basically was synonymous for creating stories every single day that were fantastic. They were like cinematic stories of transitions and all sorts of stuff. It was incredible. And I was like, hey, why don't I do that every day? Because I've got time. I do that every day in my house. I'll make some cool stories with the color grade it, make some music, do all those kind of things. So that's what I did. I made some cool Instagram stories throughout the time when I was in lockdown. And then the second thing I did, I decided to do Instagram live streams every single day where I'd get, someone like you on, or a fitness expert on, and I would interview them and talk to them. And yeah, so I guess there was two little hustle things on the side to keep me busy. But yeah, I guess that's what I did.
Yeah, so like, did you go back to doing that in-person videography after lockdown then? Or between the two lockdowns?
It was kind of interesting because media was still allowed to work. So I was still allowed to make videos. There just was some restrictions, like I couldn't necessarily have loads of people there or whatever else, but there were some gyms that would allow you to go and work in them because you were filming and you could film. So there wasn't a huge restriction on it. Granted, I probably either should or shouldn't have done it, who knows, but I needed to work because I was freelance. So I still managed to do some of those. And then when the, pandemic sort of ended, as we're starting to come out of it, then I got more clients. In fact, I got more things to do because everyone's coming out of the pandemic and wanting content.
Yeah, so talk me through where you were in your life and your career when you saw the job opportunity to be Ali Abdaal's videographer. And if people don't know, Ali Abdaal is a YouTuber whose brand is to share like a way to live a better life. That's what a productivity YouTuber. So yeah, where were you in, and when was it when you saw that advert for that job?
Yeah. So I stumbled upon Ali's content via, I think it was like an iPad review. I was in the pandemic, as you do, with excess cash because you're not paying for like traveling anywhere or doing anything. And I wanted an iPad, and I think I stumbled across his iPad Pro Max or review or whatever they're called. And I stumbled upon that, and then I started watching his content, and it was really, really interesting because he was talking about Notion and study tips and productivity and all that kind of thing. And he was very regular and consistent, so I tuned in very regularly. And I just watched it. And then, during the time, just before I applied, things were going amazing. I'm making very good money. I got married, I bought another house. Business was really good. I'd employed someone. I'd taken on someone to work with me as an editor. So for me, I was in a very good place. I was very happy. Like business was going very, very well. But one thing that did kind of like worry me was, the creators that I'm working for, they're very good and they're amazing, great clients, but they kind of sit around the 50,000 subscriber mark, 100,000 maybe subscriber mark. And you kind of want a shiny unicorn every so often. Someone's got 3 million subscribers because you get to like learn, their ins and outs, what they do, how they do things. So I always kind of had the idea, I'd really like to work with a big YouTuber, a big influencer who's not the classic influencer, but someone who's actually trying to help people live their best lives or help educate them and provide that value. Like those two things, that thing that I talked about, breadth and depth to begin with. And I was watching a video, sat on a couch. I think I'd had a couple of beers one evening, and I'm watching Ali's content. I think I'd maybe just I'd had Olivia, my daughter, so she was maybe sleeping, and he made this video, and he was hiring a videographer. So I went on the website, had a look, and I just applied. I filled in the form, and then I thought that'd be cool, but you apply for anything, and you apply for things sometimes, and it just never comes about, right? I'm sure I've messaged many people to come on the podcast, and not everyone responds or anything really happens. So I was like, yeah, cool, that'd be fun. And then I think a week later, I get an email back saying, oh, you've been successful to go through to the next stage. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And it was a video ask stage where you answer the questions via webcam and you talk about whatever, right? So I answered those questions. And then a couple of weeks later, I get an email saying, you're an exceptional candidate. We'd love to talk to you more. We've got a formal interview process. Would you be up for it? I was like, yeah, fine. So then I sat down with one of Ali's team. We had a chat, had a conversation, went through things, and went well. Enjoyed it. And then the next stage, in effect, was a trial day. So it was to meet Ali, meet the team, film a video, create a video, and then just see kind of where that took us. So I did that, made the video. It was not my best work, but it was good enough, clearly. And yeah, I remember I got a random phone call at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, and he was just like, "Do you want the job?" And I was like, "Am I allowed to swear?" No, I shouldn't swear. I was like, "Oh wow." I couldn't believe that someone of that level in terms of YouTube, in terms of subscriber count, that level in terms of content and all that kind of thing, wanted little old me, right? Someone who just picked up a camera to film a bodybuilding contest, or and to help him run the show. And that's how it happened, I guess.
What was the trial video that you did for him?
So it was just a day in the life vlog. So it was a case of, hey, you're going to turn up, follow Ali around for the day, and make a video out of it. Show us what you can do. And that was the brief. So that's what I did. And yeah, that it was honestly as simple as that. It was a case the thing with Ali and what Ali wanted out of a videographer was very much a one-man band, initiative-driven, get up and go type of person. Where it's like, hey Gordon, we're going to film a podcast today. You need to know how to do that. There's no script or book that's written to set up and film a podcast. You just need to know what to do and when to do it. And there's no time for questions. There's no time for preparation. It's just a case of go and do it. Or it's like, hey, we're going to go and film this video in Paris today. Let's go. And that's basically what I was doing. That's basically the creative type of thing that I was doing all before that, where I was helping people film podcasts. I was helping people film courses, which is also what he does. I was helping people film vlogs. I could toot my own horn, but I was basically I was made for the job. Everything I was doing, there was no, I didn't have formal training in the sense that I had to follow very strict procedures or anything. It was very much a case of, we're going to do this thing, Gordon. Can you do it? And I'd be like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Go for it. And that was basically what the test video was. It was a case of, here you go. We just want you to make a video. Show us what you can do. And that's what I did.
Yeah. So why did you go back to being an employee after so many years as being freelance, first with personal training and then with videography?
Why did I go from freedom to a contract? I guess it was two things. First of all, the money ultimately had to be good enough. And we can sit here and we can say that, money doesn't buy happiness. It does at a certain point. There's a certain point where it's enough for you not to have to worry. And I don't have big ambitions of earning huge amounts of money. I just want to earn enough where I can provide my family, we can enjoy a good life, and I don't have to think about buying a £4 flat white from my fancy barista coffee down the road. That's basically the life that I want to live. And then the second life that I want to live is, I don't feel like I'm particularly a talented individual. I don't feel like I'm a particularly intelligent individual. but I feel like I have a good essence of doing and having a skill to help people essentially who are more intelligent and more talented than me, to help share a message that helps actually impact other people's lives, like education, like how to make more money or how to save money or how to be more productive, like those kind of things, right? So I don't really know where I'm going with this, but basically that's what I wanted to do, and I didn't necessarily feel like I could do that. I didn't necessarily feel like I could do that being a freelancer, because you can't just focus on one thing when you're a freelancer. You have lots of different clients. You've got to be a marketer. You've got to be a social media expert. You've got to be a videographer. You've got to be an accountant. You've got to be a salesperson. You've got to be a manager. You've got to be like everything. It's so much stuff to do. And this gave me an opportunity to A, earn enough to allow me to not have to think too much about or worry about money. But B, it also allowed me to have that focus and impact that I was looking for.
So after you got that job, did you still do a little bit of personal training, or did you not have anything of that anymore?
There were some online clients that I still worked with. These are ones that I'd worked for quite a long time. But then, as the process has gone, I kind of was like, look, I need to focus on this one thing. And I basically just stopped. The one-to-one personal training completely stopped at the end of this sort of second/third lockdown. I was like, look, I can't do this anymore. It's too much like toing and froing. I don't know if I really want to do it. So then I sort of stopped that. And then the online stuff, which is pretty easy to keep going, but ultimately I kind of stopped doing that as well, because I just wanted to focus on my job. I just wanted to focus on what I was doing, creating great content. And yeah.
Do you ever get to do a bit of personal training for Ali or anyone on the team?
Yeah, I get the odd question asked about what should I do, what should I eat, and I try not to allow Ali to say that I'm his personal trainer, because he doesn't pay me for that. But what he does, what I do call it, is more of a gym buddy. So I'm like an expert gym friend rather than a personal trainer, I guess. Expert, that's a bit loose term. I shouldn't really say that, but I'm a well understood gym bro, I guess, so I can show him around and help him do his bench press safely.
So what do you tell people what your role is like as being a Ali Abdaal videographer? Like, what do you do?
It's hectic. It's challenging. It's challenging in the sense that you have to think there and then about how you're going to do something. There's room for you to pause and contemplate and think, but at the same time, it's a fast moving thing where it's like, hey, I'm going to do this today. Okay, sure, let's work it out. That's kind of partly what it's like. And on a day-to-day basis, I guess it's kind of like managing a team. It's managing a studio, because there's lots of equipment and things to make sure that it's working. It's anticipating things that are coming that you can at least anticipate. And, you meet loads of cool people as well, right? He interviews loads of cool people in his podcasts. He, there's a coffee podcaster, a coffee YouTuber called James Hoffman. Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
He's just in Ali's flat making me a coffee. That's what I do sometimes. And we went to Dubai earlier in the year and filmed videos there. So I guess if I was to tell people what to do, what I do is it's kind of like I basically just help someone create content on the internet. That's pretty much what I do on a day-to-day basis.
This is the big question. Is Ali a good boss?
Is Ali a good boss? How do I answer this? I think so. I think so. And I think so because ultimately I think that he has a foundation of I want to help people. Right? It's not about a bottom line. It's not about a P&L, a profit and loss sheet that says we have to make absolutely X amount of money and we have to not spend this, and like an accountant to some extent. And I think at the end of the day, he has a very good heart in terms of what he wants to do and how he wants to help people. That's his purpose. That's what he wants to do. And I think I'd probably rather answer the question and say, is Ali a good person and is he a good friend? I'd say yes. And it just so happens that he employs me and pays me, right? So but I think that's important. That's the thing, that if you people are still people, and just because they're the boss or your mom or your dad or whatever else, like, what are their core values? Like, what's their foundation, and how do they then act on that, I guess.
Yeah. So like for a couple of months you were following around nearly everywhere when you were doing his daily vlog. Are you sad that Ali decided not to do the daily vlogs anymore?
Not sad, to be honest. Like, that was hard, and it was hard because it was all on me, really. That was, I came up with I didn't come up with the concept, he did, but it was ultimately me that had to implement it. So it was quite stressful and it was hard. And like I said before, I had to come up with content, literally whatever, and that was my job. That's what I had to do. So I guess yes and no. I'm glad we took on the challenge and we got it done for 30 days. But at the same time, I'm like, whoa, yeah, that was pretty hardcore.
Yeah. Will you do any more vlogs? Because I nearly watched every one. They were very enjoyable.
Wow. I'll pass him on this message and maybe I can get a pay rise. Maybe I can get a pay rise to do them again. Maybe they'll be done again. I don't know.
Just like one things every so often when he's doing a cool thing or something like that.
I think that's probably more likely to happen. When the book launches and stuff, there'll be more of that kind of thing. Just because it's such a huge resource to put into a vlog, because it just takes so much time.
So is there less work for you to do now that you're not doing the vlogs?
Well, I was still doing everything else I was doing as a full-time job, but also doing a daily vlog. So I guess no.
Yeah. So you spend a lot of time together, especially when you were doing the daily vlog. So have you become good friends?
Yeah, I'd say so. You get to know someone pretty well, when you spend quite a lot of time together. And it's also the interesting part is I enjoy the downtime that you get. So, I part of me is similar to Ali in the sense that he's very driven. The type of thing that he wants to achieve is very similar to what I want to do. We have things in common. He grew up very differently than I did. I grew up on a farm in the middle of Aberdeen, and he was born in Pakistan, raised in Lesotho in South Africa, and then moved to London when he was like 7. So we've got very different backgrounds in lives, but with a similar kind of potential direction. So you do because you spend so much time. Like, I was spending more time with Ali than I was my own wife. So I'd hope it wasn't just it wasn't I hated him by the end of it.
Yeah. And so do you edit any of his videos then?
So the ones that I typically would edit would be the vlog sort of style stuff. Those are the things. I have and do edit some of the other content, like the main channel stuff and the podcasts. So I don't edit all of the time, and it's not necessarily my main thing. But yeah, when called upon, that's what I do. Everything basically.
So also, do you come up with ideas, or do you leave that to the writing team?
I get involved because ultimately, the writing team will come up with an idea, but I have to be able to present that in some sort of visual fashion. So there has to be a collaborative aspect of things. It can't just be a case of, hey, I've got this idea, the writers aren't going to film it. So ultimately, I've got to turn those words on a piece of paper into moving pictures.
Yeah, so you have to see if that's possible to actually visualize that idea.
Exactly. And, I'm a fan of the content, right? So ultimately, if I think something's maybe not quite right, it's a collaborative environment. So you can say hello and you can talk about what you think is good and bad, but then also offering potential opinions on thought direction and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the process? What is the process like of making a video for the main channel?
The process is the ideas section first, so it'll be like title and thumbnail. So those are the first two things that are considered. From there, you take the title and then turn it into some sort of script, if you will. It won't be necessarily word for word, but it will be something that's bullet pointed or have some sort of ideas and whatnot attached to it. It's then a case of like I look through it, come up with some sort of idea if we need to have some extra B-roll or whatnot for that. Then it goes into the diary as a filming day. We then sit down, we film that video, probably another 1 or 2 videos as well. It's then uploaded to our editors, and they edit it. They upload it then to a review platform called frame.io. They then you can comment on it, go through some bits and pieces, and then it goes backwards and forwards until it's done. Then it's basically set up. The YouTube producer does the thumbnail, and then the caption and all that kind of thing, and then it's posted.
Yeah. So, like, what is your favorite and least favorite part about your job?
Favorite part is ultimately the problem-solving aspect that comes along with it. So having to think about, right, I've got this thing in front of me. I need to make this. How do I make it the best I can make it? Then from there, yeah, that's probably the best thing. And then meeting other like YouTubers and stuff that I watch, that I fanboy over all the time, like James Hoffman making me a coffee. That's incredible. The bit that I don't necessarily enjoy, I guess it's hard work. You know, you get into the office at 8:30 in the morning, and I might not be finished until 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. You know, so it's hard work. Yeah, that's basically it. Really, that's the bit that I guess could be better. Would be just the amount of work that it fundamentally is, but it still doesn't. I enjoy more of it than I don't enjoy.
So is it your full-time job, or do you do some freelance on the side still?
So I still do some freelance aspects of things. Like I filmed a couple of weddings quite recently. I have some old clients that ask me to do some jobs for them and stuff like that. So just because like variety is helpful. Like variety is quite a nice thing to do. And I still like the people that I worked with previously, although they don't have 3 million subscribers, they still put out good content, and I like them as people. So you know, I still really want to work with them.
So, like, do you like being in front of the camera, or would you much rather be behind the camera all the time?
I like both, if I'm honest. I like a bit of both, because the like being behind the camera, you can hide, right? You don't have to show your face, you don't have to give your opinions, and sure. But at the same time, having done both, it gives me a real appreciation, for people that are doing it in front of the camera and how good people can be at that ultimate skill of like talking to camera. But then equally, I like to stand back and kind of observe and see what's good and what's not necessarily what's bad to some extent. And so I guess it's like a mix of both. You know, I like making stuff. I like making my own stuff. I like making other people's stuff. So, you know, the slightly cop-out answer is more, I guess I like both. You know, there's not one that I like less or more than the other.
Let's say for the rest of your working life, you had to stay at your current job with the same salary, or be a famous YouTuber with over 10 million subscribers earning millions. Which one would you choose?
Yeah. Which would I choose? Millions of subscribers and millions of pounds, or same job, same salary? I think one of the things with employment and working for one person is that there's a vulnerability, right? There's a vulnerability in the sense that, you know, Ali could be like, "Hey, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm off." Right? That's it. But when you have an audience, when you have a large audience, you're able to leverage that on so many different avenues. You're able to get the AdSense from YouTube. You're able to get the affiliate links of people buying the things that are in your captions. You're able to sell courses. You're able to do sponsorship deals. You can do talks. You can do books. All these kind of things. And I guess to answer it, you know, straightly, I'd probably become a YouTuber with millions of subscribers and millions of pounds. Not necessarily because of the fame and fortune, but because of the fact that, you know, I'd be robust enough to retire whenever I wanted. I'd have a lot of choices. And that would allow me to spend more time with my children. It would allow me to spend more time with my wife. It would allow me to stop. Laura would have the choice of working, so she wouldn't have to work if she didn't want to. My kids could go to they could go to a much better school to get a much better education. Like, there's all those kind of things. So for me, yeah, it's not necessarily fame and fortune that would be the driver, but just the fact that you have such a large audience and the ability to service others much better.
So, like, do you want to create more content now? Because obviously you've not uploaded on your YouTube channel for like a year or whatever, but you do. I've seen you have a podcast as well. So, do you want to create more content, or are you happy creating content for Ali?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. Because again, I see the benefit in being diverse in terms of your income streams. You know, when I talked about earlier in this podcast, it was a case of online coaching and my one-to-one personal training. Having the two different time income streams where it was cash flow, where I got big payments from clients for their sessions, but then also having my online direct debit kind of recurring income. It's the same thing where if I'm employed, should you not have something as a side hustle, or have something that's kind of there that could potentially come something? So absolutely, I want to create more content. I enjoy my podcast because it's my little brother, and I want to create memories, and whatever comes from it. But at the same time, I want to make more YouTube videos. I've scripted out 6 of them, so hopefully at some point this year, I should have some videos on my YouTube channel, because the last 3 did really well. I got like 145,000 views, 45,000 views, whatever else. So they did really well. So I'm a bit disappointed I didn't keep doing it, but here we are. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah, because I actually saw another member of the team, George. I saw a couple of his videos, which were good. So obviously you can make content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what is an average day in your life like?
An average day in my life is I get woken up by my daughter at about 6 a.m. She's up bright and early. I then get up, have my breakfast. I probably watch some YouTube, no doubt, while I'm having my breakfast. I'll then go into the office. It will be a case of like checking the calendar, depending on what day it is. It can be lots of meetings and management things to do, or it will be a day of filming. So it might be me following Ali around, or filming a YouTube video, or even multiple podcasts in a day sometimes, that kind of thing. And certainly like generally liaising with the team. Then, you know, I can finish anywhere between, it's probably Deliveroo most of the day. So we're having like lunch from Deliveroo, dinner from Deliveroo potentially. And then I'll come home, hopefully make baby bath time. So I'll get Olivia sorted for bedtime, and then relax with my wife watching TV. Maybe some more YouTube, who knows? But that's pretty much my day to day.
Yeah, so you're not in the office today then?
Not today. I get to enjoy it because there's 2 things happening. It's my daughter's first birthday party this weekend, so I have lots to prepare, and I also have a house that I'm renovating at the moment, so I've needed to take some time to be able to basically sort that out, which is a job in itself.
Yeah. So don't worry, I won't be keeping you that longer, so you can go and do that. So these are my last few questions. So what is your average week? And how much freelance is there in there?
So freelance comes more ad hoc. So it becomes, and it's usually at weekends. So I have a level of investment in like a personal training education company that we do some things. We do practical weekends and whatnot. So that can take up some of my time. But an average week is like Monday to Friday. It's like I said sort of before, where I wake up, watch YouTube, film videos, go home, go to sleep. But the freelance stuff, yeah, the freelance thing is kind of ad hoc. You know, it'll be kind of a case of like, what can you do? When can you do it? How can you do it? And weekends I'll spend with the family. It'll be like parties. Like I'm a dad now. It's very odd where you end up going to first birthday parties and hanging out with other dads and mums and whatnot. Or it's this sort of house renovation project that we're going through at the moment. So I guess my average week is kind of your stereotypical Monday to Friday 9 to 5. But in between it all, I do a bit of filming, and then freelancing can be basically anything, but usually the weekends if I have the time. And then but house renovation and hanging out with the fam.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone who wants to get more fit but can't get the motivation?
I think if you're like early 20s or a teenager, it's always going to be driven by what it looks like. So your kind of purpose and your drive is kind of fickle because you're doing it for other people to look at you and say you matter. Whereas as you get older, and you'll experience this to some extent, is that you recognize health is super important, and that if you want to not live forever but have a good life and be able to run around with your grandkids and play with them and things, that it needs to form part of your life. It's a necessity. That there's no word about it. When you look at the reduction, the lowering of mortality rates when people exercise from going for a run and weight training, it's phenomenal. It's basically like the best medicine you can possibly ever have. So I guess it's about defining, how to motivate yourself would be, well, define why you're doing it. And if you're doing it because you're trying to get attention from other people, that's probably not going to last very long. But if you're doing it because A, it makes you feel good, and B, it helps you live longer and it's going to be a good investment for the rest of your life, that's probably a good starting point. And then the other one would be the lowering the barrier to entry, like recognizing that exercise is very broad. You don't have to go to the gym. You can go for a run. You can do some press-ups. You can try and do some chin-ups in the garden. So you don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to go to places. You can literally do it wherever you like. So define exercises, whatever you want.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone who wants to do freelance filmmaking?
Start making your own stuff, like this. Like if you want to become a podcast producer, Ethan, like here we are right now, and you're learning the trade. You're learning how to talk to people, how to message people, how to attract them on as people onto your podcast, how to record a podcast, how to make it sound good, how to brand it, how all these types of things. Like, do it yourself. Like the internet now allows you to create things, and it teaches you how to do that and do it effectively. So start with that. Like pick up a camera, start filming your friends and family, start filming yourself, make videos, put them online. Like again, don't worry about what people think of you. It's fine. And then it's a case of, if your work is good enough, people will notice. But if they don't necessarily notice, message them. Drop a message. Go, hey, I make this type of content. Here's my portfolio. And just message friggin' hundreds of them. And someone will bite. Someone will be interested. Do it for free. Just like, I remember my first personal training clients, I probably did about 15, 16 sessions totally for free. So yeah, pick up a camera, start making stuff. Just film it, do whatever you need to do. Act like you're a videographer. Then once you've made a bunch of content, you've got a bit of a portfolio, start speaking to people. Do it for free. Do stuff for free. And then eventually someone will come along and they'll want to pay you. And there you go. You've just become a professional.
Yeah, like you said, I email hundreds and hundreds of people to try and get them on my podcast, and only a few reply, but then few are really interesting to talk to. And also, you said, yeah, I've started doing this as well because eventually I would love to become like a TV presenter. So this is like my experience that I can start. So I've had years of experience by the time I could look for a job as such.
Well, to be quite frank, this is why I'm here. The fact that the message that you sent me on Instagram was like, why would I not support a young man like yourself in terms of developing content? Because I know what it's like. I know what it's like when you're trying to make something work and you're putting the effort in. And there'll be rejections and there'll be people say no and they'll doubt what you're doing, or they'll be like, no, this is not great. Nah, like screw those people. And I'd much prefer be the type of person that's like, yeah, let's encourage that. I'd love to see more young people like you doing these kind of things, because you're trying to do the thing that you want to do in the future, right now. You're not saying, oh, one day I want to be this. You're like, I'm doing it right now. It's not necessarily on the BBC into a mass audience.
Yeah, thank you. I got a rejection, but I did get something out of a rejection the other day. I got sent this by David Williams. Got sent a signed book. So even though I didn't get to interview him, I've got a signed book and a signed note saying well done, which was good.
Wonderful.
But yeah, so I've got two final questions. What advice would you give someone wanting to work for a YouTuber?
Work out exactly what they need. So just like I said with Ali, right? He needed someone who could work with a level of initiative without having to be told what to do. They pick it up and they do what they need to do to get the product done. So that's what was required, first of all. Second of all, I needed a multitude of skills. I needed to know how to make podcasts, courses, film vlogs, film videos, all that kind of stuff. So, like, train yourself, do that. Like, get better at it. And then when, you know, something crops up or someone pops up and they're looking for people to work for them, apply. And when you do apply in a way in which makes you stand out. And it's not that difficult. Like, if you watch the resume video that Ali did, we hired a bunch of interns, and the ones that I hired had incredible attitudes. They actually wrote a cover letter. You know, your message on Instagram to ask me to come on the podcast, it worked really well because you told me who you were, you told me what you wanted to do, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. And the resume ones, they typically are just like generic, to whom it may concern, or Dear Ali Abdaal Limited. Whereas a lot of people that we hired for the internship was all personalized. So do that. And I think that's where you can probably work for a YouTuber, because they're not business people, they're not corporations. They want to work with people. So that's what I would say. I'd say learn the skills, like identify what they need, and then offer them your service and get really good at it. And then ultimately, when you do apply, understand that these aren't people that are business corporations that have a very set structure, that you can literally just cold email them and say, hey, I'm a writer. Like, here's some scripts and things I wrote. What do you think? Or here's some YouTube videos I made. And then keep emailing them. Keep emailing until they answer, and they will answer.
Yeah. And what advice would you give someone who wants to become successful in YouTube after working with Ali?
Understand who you're actually talking to in your videos and optimize for value. Basically, if your value is comedy or entertainment, fair enough. That's your value. But, you know, the likes of Mr. Beast and whatnot, they invest hundreds of millions of pounds into their videos. So, yeah, understand who you're talking to, answer their questions, answer their problems, and optimize for that sort of search value content that you're doing on YouTube. That would be the place I'd start after you've got going and got good.
Yeah. So thank you, Gordon, for coming on today. It's been a really pleasure. It's been a long interview, but I think I've had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, Ethan, thanks so much for inviting me on. It's been fantastic, and I must say, the fact that you sort of started this in the pandemic, I think you mentioned it was when you were like 11. I am inspired by that type of entrepreneurial spirit. So I hope it takes you far.
Thank you. It's been really good to interview you, and your whole career from personal trainer to videographer. It's a big range. It's a big difference, but it's been great.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, who knows what I'll be doing next? You know, it could be, I don't know, maybe I'll become an astronaut. Who knows? Maybe I'm not quite smart enough for that.
You never know. Yeah.
All
okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So hopefully you liked my interview with Gordon Greenhorn. I do want to say a big thank you to Gordon for giving up so much of his time for an interview. If you do want to check out more of Gordon, the link to his socials are in the description down below. Sadly, that is all we have time for in today's show. We will be back on the 28th of August at the same time with another amazing interview. Please share this video with your friends and family. Like, comment, listen to last week's episode if you haven't already. So this show until the end. Email me, follow me on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe because we are trying to get to 200 subscribers. In the meantime, if you have any suggestions about the show to make the show better, or if you want the chance to come on the show, comment below, message me on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, or email me at thebrickisshow@gmail.com. So that is all we have time for this week. We will be back on the 28th of August at the same time, but for now, goodbye.
Bringing you a kid-friendly radio show every Saturday afternoon on YouTube. Broadcasting live at 1 o'clock. Broadcasting live.